And so when we're talking about immigration, it is essential that we keep in mind that our undocumented communities are always in fear. Whether one is supportive of immigration or not, we realize that over about 12 million undocumented immigrants in the United States are living here in fear of deportation on a regular basis. And there is hope. There's a new proposal here that is HR 6, and I would like you all to become familiar with HR 6. There's another one that is HR 1603, but I'm going to focus today on HR 6. And what it basically says is this bill provides certain aliens, I hate the fact that they still use that word, with a path to receive permanent resident status. Now, who qualifies? The Department of Homeland Security or the Department of Justice shall provide conditional permanent resident status for 10 years to a qualifying individual who entered the United States as a minor and is deportable or inadmissible, which means the individual can be deported or cannot adjust legal status, has deferred enforcement, or has TPS, temporary protective status, or is the child of certain classes of non-immigrants. So the idea here is that these individuals will be able to qualify, and this is a proposal of law. This was a proposal that was made by Representative Lucille Roybal-Allard, who is a representative in Congress, and she is in the House of Representatives. And we couldn't arrange for an interview because we reached out to a certain degree at the last moment, but I'm gonna read to you the response from her office in regards to 3 questions. Question 1, what inspired Representative Roybal-Allard to write HR 6? And it says, I was inspired to help dreamers when I first learned that there were millions of young people who were brought to the United States as children from their homelands and who, because of their undocumented status, were denied such opportunities as getting jobs, attaining driver licenses, and enrolling in college. Dreamers have had to live in the shadows of our society and economy for far too long. Despite these limitations, they have contributed significantly to our economy and our communities. As the Congresswoman representing the district with the highest concentration of DACA beneficiaries, the status of our dreamers is personal and greatly concerns me. That is why I have fought for over 20 years to provide dreamers with permanent protections. This Congress, I introduced the American Dream and Promise Act, also known as HR 6, the most progressive version of the DREAM Act yet introduced, which would finally provide dreamers with the freedom to pursue the American dream. The dreamers' amazing stories and the perseverance they have demonstrated continues to inspire me to fight for them. Dreamers want an opportunity to contribute to our country fully and live without fear. Many of them do not remember their native country, and the US is their only home, the only home they know. It is time they come out of the shadows and pursue a path to citizenship in this country where many of them have been raised. And then the other question that we had is, what is going to happen next in the Senate? And is Representative Roybal-Allard optimistic that they will end up passing HR 6? And she says, I am happy to report that this Congress, my American Dream and Promise Act, HR 6, passed the House of Representatives with increased Republican support and is now pending before the Senate. While it will be very difficult to pass the bill in the Senate because of its legislative rules, I believe enthusiasm is building in Congress to protect dreamers and provide them with a pathway to citizenship, especially given their heroic contributions serving on the front lines of COVID-19 pandemic. I am also excited about the fact that there is now a new opportunity to protect our dreamers. The portion of the Build Back Better Act that passed this week in the House Judiciary Committee incorporates provisions of my DREAM Act. These provisions create a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, as well as TPS eligible individuals, deferred enforcement departure beneficiaries, and undocumented essential workers, including farm workers. The Democratic majorities in both the House of Representatives and the Senate are working together to pass this legislation. I have faith this is the Congress which will finally provide a pathway to citizenship for our undocumented immigrant groups and allow them to continue their significant contributions to our nation and economy without fear of deportation and separation from their families and the only country they know as a home. And again, that is the response to 2 of the 3 questions. I'll mention the third one in a second. For individuals who may be listening to this or watching it on YouTube, it is important, if you want to become familiar with the challenges of having arrived to the United States as an undocumented immigrant, and you end up getting that high school diploma, maybe a college diploma, in places like California, where under legislation AB 540 and SB 68, you can then go to a community college and go on to the university and get everything. And what you find is that then you may have to work at a restaurant because you do not have the ability to legally work in the career that you are pursuing or have finished your education. So if you're one of those individuals who is not familiar with this process, I invite you to read Lives in Limbo by a good colleague of mine, Dr. Gonzalez, over in Harvard University. Dr. Gonzalez has dedicated much of his life in order to research the lives of these individuals. Many of them, again, have college diplomas and end up working at a friend's restaurant, cleaning tables or, as a server perhaps, because they cannot find employment as a nurse or other position. California offers a lot more opportunities for undocumented immigrants to start their own businesses. It was California where the first undocumented attorney was able to pass the bar, get his license, and begin practicing. It is California where a lot of this work has been done. Let us remember and never forget the history that it was California, the anti-immigrant state, that passed Proposition 187. And so now California is recognizing that undocumented immigrants can contribute at a higher degree. And that's why all these opportunities are being provided. Again, I recommend the book Lives in Limbo by my colleague, Dr. Gonzalez, over in Harvard. You can go online and just purchase that book. It's a challenging read from the point of view of reading these stories, I should say, and realizing that we are preventing these individuals from contributing at a higher degree. And that takes me to the third and final question that I made to the Congresswoman, and that is, what can people do to get the Senate to pass H.R. 6 or any legislation that would help provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers and other undocumented groups? And she said, encourage everyone to call their members of Congress in both chambers and strongly advocate for the passage of both H.R. 6 and the Build Back Better Act. And so we invite you to consider calling, emailing, right, sending letters. As I've said multiple times, if Congress doesn't pass legislation on immigration by November, it is unlikely that this will happen next year for sure, or possibly for another decade. And that is because many Congress members are up for re-election, and next year they'll go out to campaign, and they are not about to say, I am pro-immigration, in some communities where that will cost them their place in Congress. I am grateful for the fact that the Congresswoman was willing to share her words with us, even though we couldn't interview her. I look forward, if immigration is passed on this issue of HR 6, I look forward to an actual conversation with the Congresswoman. But I think it's important, again, at some point, we have to recognize that this country, if we're going to talk about democracy, and some other time we'll talk about oligarchy and everything else that I talk about on a regular basis in this show. But if we're talking about democracy, it means that you, as the member of the community, have all the power to call your congressperson and say, I demand immigration reform. Again, we talked about this last week. We've been talking about it for multiple weeks. And again, just call your congressperson and call your senator. And your voice can make a difference. And with that, I want to make sure that you all keep in mind that this country is, for the most part, made from immigrants. And immigrants are the ones that will make a difference economically, right? In development of new technologies. Remember that DACA employees make a large number for Apple and Google and Facebook and all of these large corporations. You get rid of these undocumented immigrants and the economy crashes, the advances in technology stop, and everybody suffers. We'll be back with you.